Good morning and welcome to Free Advice Friday. My name is Keri Barnum for New Shelves Books, and today we are meeting, as we do every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, to talk about publishing, writing, and the business of being an author. You're welcome to join us live any week by going to newshelves.com/FAF. You can also email in your questions to info, at newshelves.com. We save those up, we answer them on Friday. And then if you can't join us live, you can catch the replay over on YouTube, which again is just youtube.com/New Shelves Books. We try to keep it pretty simple. New Shelves or New Shelves Books everywhere we go, so you can easily find us. Today, we're going to start off with a question from Linda. And the question is, I will be self-publishing my next book, but as a speaker, I want to be able to sell copies of it at the back of the room. So what are my options for being able to purchase copies of my book to resell myself? So if you were traditionally published or had a hybrid publisher, the chances are you would have to get books through your publisher, and they may give you a certain number of books for free, or they would give you a author price for books. And even that may be limited. They might give you an author discount on a certain number of books. But if you're self-publishing, as the publisher, you can get your books at print price, which is really nice because you can get them at print price from KDP. So on KDP, their author copies, you can order, it's something ridiculous. Like you can order like 999 copies of your book. Now, the thing with KDP is you cannot order those author copies until the book goes live. So you can't like order them in advance of your launch. The book has to go live first, and then you can order those author copies. It will take a little while for them to print and ship. It's not as fast as if you were ordering it like through Prime, obviously. So it can take a couple of weeks depending on how many books you ordered, but that's usually one of the cheapest options is to order author copies through KDP, and they just print them and ship them directly to you, and you can sell them at your events back of house. Now, when you're selling them at events, just keep in mind that you do have to account for sales tax when you're doing that. So make sure that you factor sales tax into your cost and all that good stuff. Now, the other option is to order your author copies and your print copies through Ingram Spark. And Ingram Spark, they do allow you to order those copies without like the not for resale banner. They allow you to order those copies prior to the book launching, which is good because that means that you can go ahead and you can order copies in advance of your launch. And with that, Ingram Spark print copies tend to be a little bit more expensive than KDP. They also do take a little bit longer. So that's one thing to keep in consideration. It takes a little bit longer, a little bit more expensive. However, some people like the print copies from Ingram Spark better. And if you are hoping to use these copies to put into a bookstore or something like that, I do recommend that you order copies from Ingram Spark over KDP, because in the back of the book, it actually tells you where the books were printed. And for someone who's selling books and they know what to look for, I promise you, we can open up the back of a book and I can tell you if it was printed by KDP and is supporting Amazon, or if it was printed at Ingram Spark and is supporting the retail bookstore, indie bookstore chain kind of events. So if you're hoping to put these into a bookstore or do something with a bookstore, I'd recommend those Ingram Spark copies just because they can tell. It really does matter where they get printed. And again, Ingram Spark, if you have a book on pre-order, like I'm working with a book right now, it comes out mid-September, and the authors, it's a collaboration. The authors want to order a box of books in advance so that they can distribute them for ARC purposes, for just everyone who wrote in the book to have a copy. And we're able to order those now and have them printed and shipped prior to the book coming out, but only through Ingram Spark, not KDP. So that is just something to kind of keep in mind. And that's what I would do. And then you just figure out, again, if you're selling back of house, you do have to account for sales tax. The easiest way, in my opinion, is to take a flat dollar amount. Keep in mind, a lot of people now are going to be paying with, they like the options of paying with a card or PayPal or Venmo, something like that. So keep that consideration. The other consideration is if they are paying with cash, it is easiest for them to pay in even amounts. $20 is a really popular number because why? When we go to the ATM, we get 20s out. So $20 is very common for sales in person. And then you just account for like work backwards of, okay, I'm just going to charge $20 and then whatever the sales tax is. So like you technically make your price depending on where you live and what your sales tax is. You technically, when you report it, you would make your price, I don't know, if tax was $1, you'd make your price 19 so that after tax it was 20. So when you're accounting for tax, it's $1 per book. And that's the easiest way to do it. Because if you have a book and you're like, okay, well, my book's $14.99. Now I'm going to figure in New York, it's 8% sales tax. So then I'm going to figure in 8%. And then I'm going to end up with whatever that is, because I'm not going to do that math and all of that. So those are kind of things to consider when you're doing in-person sales, unless you are very much set up with a card reader system. But even then, it's much easier when people ask how much the book is to say $20 even than to say, well, it's $17.89 if you get the print and it's whatever for the ebook. The other thing I would consider is for people, especially if you're speaking at conferences or you're an author who's going to different places where people might be coming from out of town. The other thing I always recommend is to print off a QR code that leads those people to your ebook, whether it be Amazon or a link that goes to like a books to read, which is a universal link. Having a QR code printed and then framed, like put it in something that can stand up on your table and having it go straight to your ebook. So if it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I'd love to get this book, but I don't have any room in my suitcase. Now, sometimes that's an excuse. We know, but sometimes it's really true. They're like, oh, I just can't bring it home. If your book is something that would do well in ebook or does sell well in ebook, having your print copies available and then having a QR code with your ebook where they can easily just purchase it rather than saying, well, go to Amazon and look it up and do this and this and that. The best way to make a sale is to make it easy for them to say yes, to make it easy for them to buy. So QR code that goes directly to your ebook is also a great idea. If your book's on Kindle Unlimited, you can even say, buy a print copy or read free on Kindle Unlimited, and that can get your customer over there as well. So always think of, even though you're doing in-person sales, think of how you can get them with your ebook or have a QR code that says, download, buy the print book, download the ebook free, and have an ebook QR code that after someone buys it, you can give them the QR code to go over to BookFunnel. You get their email address and they get the free ebook. Different things like that. Just thinking about how you can maximize that one interaction that you have in person so that you can continue to stay in touch with that customer. Because the old adage of it's 10 times more expensive to get a new customer than to keep the one you have is still true. It might even be more expensive now, but it's still true. So if you can capture that customer and get their information for later, then you want to do that. Let's see, the other question. This one is from William. Let's see. Do small publishers need a domain website? So we've talked about this a little bit. I think that all authors and publishers should have a website. It's the space that you own online. So a small or large publisher, I think they should have a website. Now, if the question is, if a small publisher does not have a website, are they legitimate? That's a different question. I think they can be, but I would say that if someone's running their business as a business, if they are publishing as a business, they should have a website presence. And if they don't, that would make me wonder how small they might be or what their business practices are, because that's one of the very basics of having a company. So that is absolutely one of the things. I think you should have a online website. And if you don't, especially as a business, I think that is one of the red flags that tells me maybe if they're not marketing themselves well, or if they don't have a space where people can find them, and they're supposed to help you get people to find your books, that would maybe make me question that a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Another question that I've gotten just recently is how to tell the difference between a hybrid press and a vanity press. This is a hot topic in publishing. And when I say hot topic, I mean, if you ever want to start a fight at a publishing conference, like if you just want to rile some people up, just stand up and say all hybrid publishers are just vanity publishers, and you will get an argument going. It'll be a great time. Actually, it won't be. I don't recommend it. But here's the thing, when we talk about vanity and hybrid press, um, the difference between the two, and they are kind of similar in the sense that in hybrid and vanity press, what happens is that the author is subsidizing the cost of the book. And when you work with a vanity publisher, we call it a vanity publisher because you just want to see your name in print. It appeals to your vanity. And so for some people, though, that's really all they want. For some people, great grandma wrote a big book of letters and we just want to get it printed. And so we're going to go with someone who's just going to have one price, do it all for us. And that's just what it is. And that's fine. Now, vanity publishers often will charge a lot. I would say a vanity publisher, the average price to publish is probably between 10 and 15,000. Now, the problem that I personally have with vanity publishers is not that they're charging people to publish their book if they're open about it. My problem with vanity publishers is many of them prey on people, and they will actually say, we think your book could be the next big thing. We read your book and we think it's fantastic. It could be turned into a movie. And then they start upcharging and really getting predatory on it. And that's what I don't like about it. If they just said, you know, we have nothing really to do with your book. We lend you our name. We get your book together and we publish it for you because that's what you want. You're going to pay us to do it. Fine. But they more often prey on people and make them think that they're being accepted. They pretend to be a traditional publisher, but then they charge for publishing. And a traditional publisher does not charge for publishing. So vanity publishers tend to prey on people and prey on people's vanity. A hybrid publisher is different in the sense that the author is still going to subsidize all or part of the cost of publishing. However, it is more of a partnership. With a hybrid publisher, it is a publisher with a set of skills that pairs with an author, and they're pairing together. And the hybrid publisher usually is bringing their skills to the table. The author is bringing both a manuscript and funds to create the project. And they work together to publish a book. And then most of the time, they split royalties down the middle, or they have a royalty split that gives more back to the author. And Vanity Press and Vanity Publisher, they don't do that. Not only do you pay to have your book published, they usually don't do a great job. They do no marketing unless you pay them, another 10 grand. But on top of that, a vanity press still does traditional royalties that are usually like 7 to 10%. So on top of everything, you're still not getting more royalties for the books you sell. A hybrid press is working with you. They're bringing their skills and charging you typically a little bit less for a product than they would if they weren't getting royalties. And you're bringing funds and you're bringing your manuscript, you're working together. There is typically more marketing with a hybrid press, and they're working with you on that. And then profits and royalties are split more down the middle so that you both are benefiting with the sales of the book. Now, there is a very fine line because you can see there's a lot of similarities, and that's why we get in so many arguments about a vanity and a hybrid press. Now, IBPA, the Independent Book Publishers Association, has created kind of a criteria of what they expect, what they recommend you ask of a hybrid publisher. And I have dropped that link here in our chat today. If you're watching on Facebook or if you're watching a replay, just go to IBPA online.org, and you can find it there. You can Google IBPA hybrid criteria. It'll pop right up and you can download that for free. So I don't think, again, I think they are different. I think it's mostly just being aware of what you're getting into. Hybrid publishers may be picky and choosy. They may say, no, we're not going to take that book on or this book on. Vanity publishers will take on any book that you pay for. You got 10 grand, your book is brilliant. Oh, you don't have that money. Yeah, I'm so sorry. And that's kind of how it goes. A hybrid press typically will kind of vet books a little bit more because they are going kind of into a profit sharing situation with the author, and they stand to lose as well as gain. And so that's why it makes it a little bit more equitable, because both people are putting something in and hoping to make profit, not just on the author, but on the final product. And that's kind of the difference. And then, of course, we have traditional press, which is, or, traditional publishers, which is where the author gets paid for their manuscript. So they either get an advance, which can be as small as $500. It can be as much as, I just saw a deal that was a 7-figure deal, although that was for 4 books, but still 7 figures. So your advance can go a couple hundred to, couple 100,000. And then you also get royalties, but your royalty share in traditional publishing is usually much lower. It can be anywhere between 7 to 15%, although I would say the 7 to 10% is more standard for print books. And then it can be a slightly different for audio or ebook rights as well. But you don't put any money up front. You give the IP, you give the work, the traditional publisher buys the rights to publish your book. They take most of the work and the expense of creating the book and the profit of the sales afterwards, but you get a percentage. And I think all types of publishing, well, at least I think hybrid and traditional publishing, I think they both bring value. Again, for people who walk into vanity publishing knowing what it is, I've had people come to me who say, this book is not going to be a bestseller. I don't even care if it sells. I've been wanting to see this book in print, and I want to do it for myself. I want my kids to see it, and that's what I want. Now, in those cases, I always tell people you can, of course, self-publish and you can do this, but for some people, that's overwhelming. They would rather pay someone a flat fee to not have to worry about it, and they get their printed book. In that case, some of them go to Vanity Press. Some of them will hire someone to, I always say you can always hire like project management for publishing. That's one of the things New Shelves does, where you can hire someone to kind of just do the work for you, but under your name. So you still own it, and it's still usually a lot less than vanity publishing. But I think it's more the deception around vanity publishing, and that is what's given it a bad name. And because of the similarities of the author paying to publish with vanity press and hybrid press, that is why we see so much so many arguments and so much confusion between the two, because the differences are subtle, but they are there. So it's important to know the two. And to not, now you know what not to say when you're at a publishing conference, or in a big group of, don't go to IBPA and say that, since it's a lot of small and hybrid press. That will not go over well. Another question we got here was about how to share audiobooks before they're published. So depending on how you are publishing your audiobook, if you are publishing through ACX exclusively and going with Audible and iTunes, then when you publish that way, then you will, I think you get codes from ACX. So you have some codes that you can share. I don't know if the book has to be live or not to be able to share those codes for free download. If you're doing Findaway Voices, then you would get codes from Findaway Voices to download through Spotify. And those codes can be used prior to the book being published. I know that for sure because I just used one not that long ago. And then, of course, we now have BookFunnel that has audiobooks as well. So Book Funnel is now allowing you, if you opt in for audiobooks, you can do full length audiobooks to either give away or to actually sell. You can hook it up to a payment system like PayPal, and then you can sell your audiobooks direct that way. So those are the three ways that you can really share your audiobook in advance. Now, if it's someone that's for general people, if it's someone that you would like to share your audiobook with, that you're like working with, or you need someone to, I don't know, upload your book to find a way, whatever it is. If it's someone on that level or someone you trust, like if it's like, hey, mom, I need you to listen to this, then you, of course, can share through something like WeTransfer, a Dropbox link. I wouldn't do that for just your ARC readers and just give them access to your files, because it would be your individual files. But if it's someone that you trust or someone you're working with to upload that kind of thing, then you would want to share your actual files, which again, WeTransfer, Dropbox link, something like that is the way that you would go. Let's see, what is the best way to get a trademark for my publishing blog, etc.? Is it best to hire a professional? What is the typical cost and time frame? A trademark, now I'm not a lawyer, I cannot give legal advice. I can only share information as I know and understand it. But as far as getting a trademark in the US anyway, you would file with the trademark office. I don't think it's necessarily difficult. Um, but there are some steps in, in the process of it. So if you are going to file for a trademark, you would go to, I think it's uspto.gov, I think is the website. And you would go there and you would file for a trademark. Now, for a trademark, you do need to know that when you're doing that, filing for a trademark, you have to file in different things. Like you can't just say, um, you know, I I want to trademark the word buzz. Just buzz. I'm gonna do book buzz and cooking buzz. I want buzz. And that is not how it works. You have to have a specific trademark. You have to be able to prove how it's specifically going to relate or does relate to your business or brand. And it has to be in a specific area. So for example, you can trademark maybe book buzz, but you would have to be able to prove that it's related to your business or brand. And then it would have to be in specific categories. So it would be book buzz for publishing and book products. Now, you can do multiple trademarks for different things, but a single trademark is going to cover typically one area. So I can't necessarily try to take book buzz and trademark it for cooking or for anything. Like if someone comes up with something later, it has to be unique. And then you go through, and Charlotte's saying last time she did it, or last time she looked into it, it was about $750. That may be true if you do have to end up getting a lawyer involved or anything like that. And there are like online, I forget what that website is. There are like online websites that can help, that have like lawyers online that can help you. It can be thousands to millions, depending on what the trademark is, what all is involved for you. But the general, if you're able to do it yourself, if it's fairly simple, then it should cost, I believe, less than about $1,000. So there is that. There you go. And you cannot trademark titles. You cannot trademark, like there's a lot of things you can't trademark. You can't trademark titles. In most cases, you can't trademark names. Now you can trademark a character. So for example, the character Jack Reacher has a trademark because that's a unique character. Now, does that mean no one can use the name Jack Reacher and name their kid that, or that no one can use the name Jack or Reacher? No, it does not. It means that in this context, as this character for IP in the thriller space, in the book space, that kind of thing, Jack Reacher is trademarked as a character. So just know that too, that sometimes you're trademarking a business name, sometimes it's a specific character, a brand, but it has to be proven that it's unique and why it needs protection or why you want that trademark. So you can't necessarily just go on and trademark a name. It has to be a brand around that name. And then one of the most important things to remember about a trademark is it's only as good as you protecting it. So if someone is using your trademark, you really have to be on your toes, putting out a cease and desist and following up with it, because if you don't protect your trademark weakens, and that person can build up a more substantial brand than you. And if you're allowing them to use it for different things, it can be a whole hotbed of legal issues, to my understanding. So if you have a trademark, it's not just enough to have it, you have to protect it. So it's like playing king of the hill, right? You can be on top of the hill, but then you have to protect your space. You have to be willing to kind of protect it, and um, I don't want to say go after, that sounds so violent, but you do have to be willing to protect it and to follow up on it, and to um, give notice to anyone who's using it when they shouldn't. You do actually have to follow up, and that can cost thousands of dollars if it does go that far, if it goes to where you need a lawyer, if it goes to court, if it goes to something like that. It can cost quite a bit of money to do that. Now, in some cases, especially with books, I had an author who trademarked their company, their brand, and they trademarked it. And then there was another book that came up on Amazon specifically. There was another book that came up using their trademark name pretty closely. It was in the same space. It was in cookbooks, and this person was in cookbooks. And all they had to do in that case was they sent a cease and desist. The person didn't remove their book. So the person with the trademark then went to Amazon and reported trademark infringement. All they had to do was show their trademark and how that was infringing, and Amazon took the book down. So in that case, it was pretty simple. But if you do have to go to court over something, that would be kind of crazy. Also keep in mind, as far as business names, and again, I'm not a lawyer, I cannot give legal advice, but as far as business names, there is trademarking a business name, and then there's also just for each state, usually, um, there is registering a business name. And so that's a little bit different. So you can register a business name in a certain state, which gives you the right to use it in that state. I'm not sure how that affects if later someone trademarks a business name. It may go back to timing. It may go back to, when did you establish your business, opposed to when they established their trademark. Is there any crossover? Who has the brand, and all of that kind of things. So that's one of the things to consider. And has that happened? Actually, yes. Many of you know Alexa Bigwolf, and Alexa Bigwolf had been using a brand for her podcast and some of her stuff for a long time. And then someone came and essentially gave her a cease and desist and said, that's my trademark name. And when it came up to it, the trademark had come before Alexa had started using it, and she did have to rebrand everything, which is why I do recommend, regardless, when you're starting a brand or something like that, even if you're not trademarking your brand, I recommend you go to that website for trademark that I shared, the uspto.gov, and you search and make sure no one else has a trademark on the business name or the brand that you would like to use before you start using it, regardless of if you personally plan to trademark anything. Yeah, again, I'm not quite sure on the details. That some of these are more legal questions, and unfortunately, I'm just not qualified to answer those. All right, let's see. If you write children's books, traditional publishers usually give a 10% of net receipts or retail back to the author. They will give 5% to author and 5% to the illustrator. It's a great benefit if you do both, and agents will be more interested in representing you. Yeah, sometimes that's true. Children's book market for sure. 10% is very common on children's books. And we're talking about royalties given by a traditional publisher. And um, It does split in that case because it's not just the author, it's an author and an illustrator. So it's not 10% to the author and 10% to the illustrator. It's 10% for the IP, which is split two ways because there's both an author and an illustrator in that case, which is it's just part of the business. Usually advances for children's books tend to be lower as well, than if you were doing something like um, adult fiction, just because children's books tend to cost more to print. They tend to sell more slowly just just because we don't necessarily see other IP connected like ebooks or audiobook. So we sometimes see that as well. I'm trying to find, not that long ago, a couple of weeks maybe, we had talked about asking for endorsements, not only how to ask for them, but the fact that, like, hey, go ask for endorsements, even those pie in the sky, the different types of endorsements you can get, ranging from, um, you know, getting a big endorsement from a well-known author to, trying for parents, teachers, grandparents. We had talked about endorsements, and I just given some tips on how to reach out. And someone who was here on that day shared a success story that I just want to share, because I'm not just telling you guys, like, I have authors who have gotten Publishers Weekly reviews through Book Life. I'm not just telling you that I've had people get big name reviews. Like, it actually happens. So yes, Liz, I'm sharing your story. Hope you don't mind. I think you gave me permission. So here we go. I just wanted to share that the difference between, Liz was saying, someone asked the difference between blurbs and reviews and how to get them. And I had answered the question. And she keeps a book on her desk, like, absolutely loves it, ties in really well to her middle grade story. And she's shopping it around, working with agents, publishers, that kind of stuff. And so Liz reached out to this author, this pie in the sky author, reached out to that person's publisher and emailed them. 2 days later, the author responded and said that he would be happy to write a blurb for Liz's books. And so that is amazing to have that blurb in hand, whether you're working, you're trying to shop for an agent or you're shopping your book to a traditional publisher. To have a blurb or a review from a well-known author in the space is amazing. And also congratulations. Because here's the thing, and we keep talking about it, you can't get it if you don't try. You are going to miss every single shot you don't take. So if you don't pick up that book and go, man, why not? If I can't find that author's email, let me try the publisher, let me try the agent. If you don't reach out, then you're never going to get it. But when you try, you have an opportunity. And the fact that you are going to be putting it out there, it's huge. So you've just got to put yourself out there. As Amy said when she was on, it's really where opportunity and luck meet. But if you don't create the opportunity for yourself, you're not going to get that luck. So you really, really have to put it out there and try for those endorsements. When authors tell me, like, well, should I really even try for trade reviews? Of course you should, because you have an opportunity. It doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time. Of course you should try, because if you get them, it's huge. And if you don't get them, you didn't really lose anything. So absolutely give it out there. I love that it was just like a very convenient, quick example of how, when you put into practice some of the things we talk about, the marketing, the outreach, that good things can happen if you put yourself out there. So thank you, Liz, for sharing that with me, because it was very exciting to see that for you. It made me very happy for you, and it does make me very happy for you. Let's see. I think we had another question, but I've got to find it, because when you put things somewhere, you won't lose it, so that you don't lose it and you forget where you put it. I did that to this one, and I know I did. Okay, question here was about how to price a book. If you're looking at how to price the book, then when you're looking at pricing, you want to look at a couple of things. You want to look not only at your genre, for example, nonfiction titles tend to be slimmer but sell for more than fiction titles because nonfiction, or especially like prescriptive, gosh, I can't speak, prescriptive how-to books tend to cost more because we might keep them as a reference. It's telling us how to do something, it's solving a problem. And that tends to cost more than like a romance novel. So one of the things you want to look at is you want to look at your genre. And then from there, you want to look at the genre. Then you want to find comp books that are in the same category or topic. So if you're in fiction, it's not enough just to say, got a fiction book. It's not even just enough to say, I have a romance book. For example, ebooks for contemporary romance tend to be priced much lower than historical Regency romance. And romance that is women's fiction tends to be priced in the middle of the two. So it's not enough to just say, I write fiction or I write romance. You really want to go to your comps. If you're writing nonfiction, well, great. Is it memoir? Is it business? Is it a how to? What topic is it on? Is it how, it's fresh for me, how to take apart washers like a washing machine and wash it, which I did yesterday because that's what everyone does when they have like 10 minutes free. It took like 5 hours. But that kind of thing, people will pay more and differently than they will for a memoir. If it's business, that's a different reader. It's going to, cost differently. So really go to your specific category. From there, find a couple of comp books, and this is important. They should hopefully have been selling or published in the last year or two. We're not looking for a book that's been around for 15 years. We want to find something in your category similar that has come out in the last year or two. Look at their prices. Once you look at their price, you also want to look at a couple of other things. How big is their book? If your nonfiction business book is 100 pages and theirs is 300 pages, you probably cannot justify the cost of matching their price. Now, there is something to be said for perceived value where you don't want to undervalue your book, but also you don't want to price yourself out of the market. If you have a how-to book on how to clean washing machines and everyone else's ebooks are at $2.99 and yours is at $7.99, that's such a big gap that we're probably not thinking, oh, this has more value. We're thinking, wow, why is that so expensive? So you want to really look at the prices. And one of the things I see most often, because it's very natural that a lot of this research for most people happens on Amazon, just because Amazon is one of the largest online retailers and they are a very large, they're actually the second largest search engine in the world, right after Google. So it makes sense that we might do research there. This is where a lot of people get mixed up. Let me show you. All right. So if we're searching for business books on leadership, sure, let's go there. One of the things that we want to look at when we're looking for books is number one, we want to find something that is similar to our book in the same kind of area that we plan to write in. So maybe we're on like the CEO or organization level. So let's click on this book. We're like, okay, this is my comp book. One of the things that we want to look at for pricing, Amazon discounts books. Now, this book is from 2005. I do not recommend that you're looking at comps that are 20 years old, but I'm not going to take the time to go find a newer comp. But what I did want to show you is that Amazon discounts books all the time. So it's really important that when you're looking at pricing and you're trying to help price your own book, you're not looking at this number. This number is discounted by Amazon. That's not the price of the book. The list price of the book right here, that is the price of the book. That's what's being listed in the wholesaler and bookstores and so on and so forth. So make sure you're looking at this number, because if you're looking at this book and you're saying, all right, it's 300 pages and it's 1574, that's very different in hardcover, by the way. That's very different than saying the list price is $34. So when you're looking and you see 5 books that are in the, the 25 to 35 range, that's a lot different than if you're looking at the discount price of 1574, and that can happen for the Kindle as well. So the digital list price on this one, very high, is $30.60. This is someone who really they're trying to push people to hardcover is what it is. They probably actually have stock they're trying to get rid of if it's 20 years old. That's just a guess though. So that is one of the things that you really have to look at. Perfect. And so that is absolutely something you have to look at when you're looking at pricing it. And then not just one book, several books. And then one of the best things to do too, now this works for print books, not necessarily ebooks, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But then go to the bestseller, look at the rankings, find a ranking that works well. We're going to say motivational business books is one of the categories we think would fit the book. We're going to go to the bestseller list and we're going to look at these and look and see what these books are priced at. These are currently selling, whether they're new or not, they're currently selling. And one of the things we want to do is we want to look at the pricing. Now, the reason why I said Kindle doesn't always work. In some of these categories, we know a lot of people will hit bestseller ranking while they are on discount, while they're in a promotion. That tends to happen in fiction more than nonfiction, and fiction uses that sales tactic much more often. But that's one of the things you have to consider. If you're like looking at the number 1, 2, and 3 spots and they're all like 99 cents, no, that's probably a promotion. That's not probably their like normal price. So you don't need to price your book at 99 cents all the time. But just a consideration, use your judgment there. But as you're looking through the comps, look through and find one that looks like yours or looks like it's a good connections. We're going to say Tools of Titans, like this feels like my book. Well, then we're going to go over here. We're going to look at their Kindle price and see, how it connects. Number one, is it in Kindle Unlimited or not? Looking to see if the best-selling books are in Kindle Unlimited or not can give you great insight to whether or not you want your book to be in Kindle Unlimited. What's the price? Very often, if a book is in Kindle Unlimited, the retail price will be a little bit higher because people figure, look, you can read it for free on Kindle Unlimited, or if you're outright buying it, you can pay a little bit more. And then you want to look at the paperback and the hardcover. And this is a perfect example that the hardcover is cheaper than the paperback. Not because it's actually cheaper, it's actually more expensive to print, but because Amazon's discounting it. So again, you have to click on it and you have to check the list price. The list price for hardcover is $32.50. Go over to the paperback. This one, it looks like this is maybe an outdated, and that's why it's only got one book in stock and the rest are used. So this is $23.36. But again, look for the list price, look for the Amazon list price, because that's the information that you need. So when you're looking to price a book, look, and again, also something to consider. No, this is $17.99, and we're like, wow, that's kind of high. Sure is. Look how many pages this book is. It's 604 pages. So if you have a business book that's 100 pages, you need to take that into consideration for your pricing. It matters more in nonfiction than in fiction. With fiction, the pricing for fiction tends to be more consistent, even if it's slightly fewer pages. Like most people don't look at a novel that's 200 pages or 300 pages and say, I'm not getting the value. Now, especially for print books, if you are looking at a 200-page novel or a 600-page novel, the price is going to be higher because the cost of print is higher, but you're also looking at a book that's like yay or yay. And that represents, 3 hours of reading or 9 hours of reading. And so there is certainly some difference there. But in general, we're just talking about, 100 pages. It's not going to matter as much when you're doing your pricing. So those are my top tips kind of for finding your price, is to go to the market to see what's selling. And also pay attention to if you're looking at indie authors and self-published authors or traditional press, because sometimes indie authors will price their books low, low, low to sell a lot of them, where traditional press is not doing that. And so you kind of want to fall somewhere in between usually. You don't want to price too low, but again, that perceived value, you don't want to price too high. So it's a little bit of research, a little bit of gut instinct, and then a lot of like, I'm going to put this number out there and I'm going to try it. Especially for the ebook, it's really easy to change your ebook price or to do down prices. So you might just consider, I'm going to put this price on here. I can always lower it later. And sometimes that's what happens. You find a sweet spot later on. All right, guys, I think that's it for today. Thanks for being here. We'll be back, of course, next Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you have any questions you'd like answered, just email in at info@newshelves.com or join us next week live at newshelves.com/FAF. Thank you for being here. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.